All right, welcome to the land of quadratics. This is what we'll be learning for the entire fourth 9 weeks. When we're introducing the quadratics, we have some very important vocabulary. So that's how we're going to start the lesson. First, land in quadratics is polynomials. There are different forms of polynomials. We have monomials. So when you think of the word mono, I hope you think of the number 1. Because what a monomial is one term. So examples of monomials could be 5, because a term could be a number. X, because a term can be a variable. Or 5x, because a term can be a number, variable, or a combination of both. So monomial is one term. 5 could be a monomial, x could be a monomial, and 5x could be a monomial. So when you think of the word binomial, the base word is bi. So when you hear bi, hopefully you think of 2, because that's what a binomial is. It's the sum of 2 monomials, meaning it's basically 2 terms. And so when we say 2 terms, I mean 2x plus 5. I have a term of 2x, and then I have a term of 5. Notice it's separated by a plus sign, because terms are separated by plus and minus signs. Then we have a trinomial. So when you think of the word tri, hopefully you think of 3. Therefore, a trinomial is the sum of 3 monomials, meaning it's 3 terms. So an example of a trinomial could be 2y plus 3x minus 6. I have 3 different terms, all separated by a plus or minus sign. So monomial, 1 term. Binomial, 2 terms. Trinomial, 3 terms. Now, when we talk about the degree of a monomial, remember, a monomial is 1 term. So a degree of a monomial basically is the sum of the exponents. So the word degree and the word exponent mean the same thing. So if I'm looking at the term 4x cubed, looking at that monomial, because it's only 1 term, and I want to know basically how many exponents does it have. So 4x to the power 3. This 3 is an exponent. So if it has an exponent of 3, that means it has a degree of 3, because degree and exponent mean the same thing. But in the example 4x cubed y squared, I have more than 1 exponent. I have an exponent of 3. So in 4x cubed y squared, I have 2 different exponents. I have an exponent of 3 and I have an exponent of 2. In this case, I need to combine my exponents, because it says the degree of a monomial is the sum of all of the exponents. So my exponent of 3 plus my exponent of 2 will give me a degree of 5. So that's the degree of a monomial, because it's only 1 term. But what if I have more than 1 term inside of it? Meaning I have a polynomial, binomial, trinomial, binomial, whatever it is, I got more than 1 term. So down here in this example, 4x cubed y squared plus 5x squared y plus 6x. I have 3 different terms, which makes this a trinomial. And they want to know what is the degree of it. Well, the greatest degree in the polynomial would be the degree. That means I have to look at each term separately. So in my first term, use different colors for my terms. So in my first term, 4x cubed y squared, what is the degree of that 1 term? So the degree of this 1 term, I have a degree of 3. Remember, degree means exponent, and a degree of 2. Remember, that means exponent. So I have a degree of 5. Well, what about my next term in my trinomial? 5x squared y. I have a degree of 2, and I have a degree of 1. So, Ms. Carter, why you say you got a degree of 1 right there? Because if there is no exponent on the variable, it's automatically known to be a 1. So that term has a degree of 3. Well, what about 6x? That's my next term. What is its degree? So 6x, remember, if there's no exponent on the variable, that exponent is known to be 1. So it has a degree of 1. Now, what they asked me was, what is the greatest degree? The degree of a polynomial, when it has more than one term, is whichever one is the highest. Well, what's the highest number? 5, 3, or 1? So the degree of this polynomial is 5. All right, let's do a little couple practice problems. All right, got some different expressions here, and we are going to tell what type of polynomial it is, meaning is it a monomial, is it a binomial, or is it a trinomial, and what is the degree? So if I look at my first expression, 4y minus 5x to the 4th z, they want to know what type of polynomial it is. Well, I see 2 different terms. So if they're different terms, because I got one right here, and I got one right here, and they are not the same, meaning it's 2 different terms. Therefore, I have a binomial. But then they want to know the degree of that binomial. So I have to look at each term separately, because remember, the degree is going to be whatever is the highest. So 4y, that means it has a degree of 1 because it ain't no exponent. So I'm going to put 1 there to make me feel better about my life. And then the next one has a degree of 4, and it has a degree of 1. So this degree is 1, and this degree is 5, which is highest. So it has a degree of 5. On the second one, 6x cubed, 4x squared, and 3. I have 3 different terms. Therefore, it must be a trinomial. Because remember, like terms have the same variable and the same exponent. That's why I have 3 different terms. So they want to know the degree. So on 6x cubed, what is the exponent? That tells me my degree, which is 3. 4x squared, what is the exponent? That tells me what my degree is, 2. And 3, it doesn't have a variable. There's no variable there. So if there's no variable, I cannot have an exponent. So it has a degree of 0. So what's the degree of this polynomial? 3, because that's the degree that's highest. Okay, negative 6.5. It's only one term. It's not separated by no plus sign, not separated by no minus sign. It's just solo dolo. Solo dolo means monomial. And then I look and they want to know the degree. It ain't got no exponent. So if it ain't got no exponent, it ain't got no degree. So my degree is a 0 because there is no exponent. So no exponent, no variable, no degree. All right, A is only one term, not separated by no plus sign, not separated by no minus sign. Therefore, it is a monomial with a degree of 1 because it has no exponent on that variable, which is understood to be 1. All right, 6x minus x plus 4 definitely looks a little different because, for one, it got some like terms. So I can combine these terms. And when I combine them, I get 5x plus 4, which gives me a binomial. And so I'm looking for my variable. I only got one. It doesn't have an exponent. Therefore, my degree is 1 because that's the exponent. (26b squared). How many terms does it have? I only see one, not separated by no plus sign, not separated by no minus sign. Therefore, it is a monomial. What is the exponent on the variable? That's my degree, 2. All right, so there are some instances where I have non-polynomials. All right, and non-polynomials are negative exponents. This negative exponent makes it a non-polynomial. And 2a over 4b, basically because it has a variable in the denominator. So those are examples of non-polynomials. And that's how we tell the type of polynomial and tell what the degree of the polynomial is. All right, what about standard form of polynomials? Super important, but this goes back to knowing what my degrees are. So standard form of a polynomial, I list my degrees, I list the term depending on its degrees from the greatest to the least. This is what I mean. First of all, I got a term here. I got a term here. I got a term here. And I have a term here. I have to rearrange this in standard form depending on what the degrees are. So 4x4 to the power 4, meaning that I have a degree of 4. -7, I don't have a variable. That means I have a degree of 0 because there's no variable there. 5x squared y. I have two different exponents. I have an exponent of 2, and I have an exponent of that invisible 1. And then 6x to the 5th, I have an exponent of 5. So I have a degree of 5. So I'm going to rearrange these terms depending on the degrees from the greatest to the least. So I have a degree of 5. I have a degree of 3. I have a degree of 0, and I have a degree of 4. And I'm going to rearrange the terms from greatest to least depending on the degree. So which degree is the highest? 5. That means 6x to the 5th will come first. What's my next degree? 4. That means positive 4x to the 4th will come next. All right, what come after 4? 3. That means positive 5x squared y would go next. And what's left? 0. That means -7 will go last. And this is in standard form with the degrees listed from the greatest to the least. And when they talk about leading coefficient, that basically means when it's in standard form, what number is in the front? So this is in standard form, I know, because my exponents are going 5, 4, 3, 0. Well, what number is in the front? 6. All right, to call it Beyonce. That's my leading coefficient. All right, let's get a little practice. Talking about standard form and leading coefficients. I have 9x squared plus 3x to the 6 minus 4x. Notice they're all different terms. Obviously, this is a trinomial. I know it's a trinomial because it got 3 different terms. They didn't ask me that, but it's good to know. If I can get my screen working. All right, and they want it in standard form. That means I'm looking at my exponents. So looking at my exponents, I have an exponent of 2, I have an exponent of 6, and I have an exponent of 1. So when I rearrange them, I'm just going to rearrange. 6 will come first. The term that has an exponent of 2 would come next. And the term that has an exponent of 1 would come next. And they want to know what's the leading coefficient. Who's Beyonce? Who's in the front? 3. 12 plus 5y plus 6xy plus xy squared. We hadn't talked about this term, but we talked about monomial being 1 term, binomial being 2 terms, trinomial being 3 terms. Anything more than that, they automatically classify it as a poly. Because poly means many. So after they get from trinomial, anything above that, they just call it poly. All right, so I need to put it in standard form. So I'm looking at my exponents. So 12, obviously it doesn't have a variable, so I have an exponent of 0. 5y, it has 1 variable, 1y, so that gives me an exponent of 1. 6xy have 2 different variables, both with an exponent of 1, so it gives me a degree of 2. In xy squared, I have 2 different exponents, x with an exponent of 1, y with an exponent of 3, which gives me y with an exponent of 2, which gives me a degree of 3. So I'm putting them in standard form, looking at the exponents, going from the greatest to the least. So the term that has a degree of 3 is going to come first. The term with a degree of 2 will come next. The term with a degree of 1 will come next. And the term with a degree of 0 will go last. And they want to know what is the leading coefficient. Who's Beyonce? 8. All right, negative 4y plus 2 plus 5y squared. So I'm looking, all of the terms are different, and it's 3 terms, so obviously it's a trinomial. Not important for what they're asking me, but it's good to know. I'm looking at, they want me to put it in standard form, so I got to look at my degrees. I have a degree of 1, because that y doesn't have a number on it. That means it's telling me it's 1y. I have a degree of 0 because that 2 does not have a variable. And 5y squared, I have a degree of 2. So putting them from greatest to least, depending on the degree, the term with a degree of 2 will go first because that's greatest to least. The term with a degree of 1 and the term with a degree of 0. And my Beyonce, aka my leading coefficient, is 5. 6x minus 7x squared plus 8. 6x has an exponent of 1 because there's no number in front of it. Negative 7x squared has an exponent, aka a degree of 2. And 8 doesn't have a variable, so there is no degree. So I need to put them in order, depending on the degrees from the greatest to the least. A degree of 2, that means that term will come first. Pay attention to the negative that is in front of it because that is part of the term. So negative 7x squared plus 6x plus 8, and my Beyonce is a negative 7. In the very last example, x cubed plus x to the power 5 plus 3 minus x. They want me to rearrange this in standard form. So I have an exponent of 3. I have a degree of 5. I have a degree of 0. And I have a degree of 1. So my term with a degree of 5 will go first. My term with a degree of 3 will go next. My term with a degree of 1 will go next. And my term with a degree of 0 will go next. And my Beyonce is what number is leading. Remember, in front of this x, if there is no number, the magic number is 1. So my leading coefficient, aka my Beyonce, is 1.